This is Seamless, and today we're going to go over more Vocodex vocoder based stuff. That's primary. We're also going to cover a little bit of FM synthesis, but the focus is on the Vocodex stuff. And to illustrate this, I'm going to show you a part of a track that I'm going to release pretty soon called Menagerie. Menagerie. Hope I'm pronouncing that right. I named it that because it's a zoo in here. Anyway, this is the third drop. And there's a bit of the chorus and melody and whatever. I'll play a bit of it, and then we'll go into how these sounds happen. The blue is a vocoder, the green is normal FM, and then these are doodads. Ready? Here we go. Okay, so let's make a focus on the Vocodex stuff, because that's what we're about. Keep my voice on. That's also what I'm about. Okay, so as you can see from the front page here, and also because of all this, a lot more is being automated than the last time I brought up Vocodex vocoder-based stuff. Last time, I made it pretty simple. I kept just the front page values and maybe one or two things in the Vocodex itself, but all manner of things have happened to make this work, and I will begin to show you what it is. So let's look at what I'm automating here. This is the carrier. The carrier is an FM synthesis based bass, and then I have that being modulated by good old oh yeah.
Oh
Good
yeah.
times. And I'm automating the bandwidth in the Vocodex very slightly. The filter fatness. That's what that's what that is. And also the unison and the stereo envelope. So the last one is basically just stereo separation for the unison. The unison does cool stuff. We'll be talking about that. So first of all, let's show you what the carrier sounds like by itself. Now, this carrier is actually a version of the main FM bass in the track itself. It's slightly different, but it's more or less the same thing. I actually made the carrier first, and then I took that carrier and modified it to make the main bass of this track. And by the way, this FLP is going to be available for the pay what you want model that Impulse Gain had. So eventually, like in the next couple of days, you can get your hands on this and look at it yourself and poke around and see all kinds of cool things. I will do a making of beyond just this vocoder stuff, but I really wanted to show off this vocoder stuff because it's kind of cool. So in the Citrus, the carrier, two things are being automated: the X and the Y. What's the Y controlling? The Y is controlling, I believe. Oh yeah, it's controlling the mod input of 4 and 5. 4 and 5 are both the high harmonics of 1 and 3, which are normal level operators oscillating operator 1. So, I mean, the operator 2 is a normal level oscillator operating 1 and 3 at different polarities, and then 3 has a pitch difference. That's what's creating that pitch warble, as opposed to if it were the same pitch, no warble. Additionally, to do the pitch difference, 3 and 1 are also being modulated by different pitched high-end harmonics. And This is basically like having two basses running at once. And I mean, you probably could get this result by having two different citruses or two different FM8s if you wanted to try that. But the kicker here is that 4 and 5 are being modulated by 6. And then the Y modifier is controlling how much 6 is modifying 4 and 5. So if we look at the automation clip here, that this one here is X and this one here is Y. And that's the difference that it creates. Now, let's bring back the actual vocoder. So you see here, this thing here is the filter fatness, which is the fat modifier here. I'm not modulating the pitch shift, that's staying there. And then this is the unison. I'm keeping it at two voices, just because. And now what happens when it turns up though, it's not a normal chorus sound. Because like if I were to disable it in here and control it manually, you can actually hear formant differences. And that's because it changes I believe it changes the modulator pitch a little bit as you move it around. Because, I mean, if you think about what a chorus does, a chorus spreads it by having a delay, just by like the audio, and you can spread it with the stereo. And then you also have pitch difference. And then that's what the choruses do, like a unison control in a synth. And in the Vocodex, I believe that's what this is doing. So if you control that, you have additional formant morphing capabilities. So there's that. Right alt. Stop that. Okay. And then this is the stereo envelope that I was controlling with the additional modifier down there. And this is filter fatness, as I mentioned earlier. Filter fatness and bandwidth kind of sound like the same thing, but they are apparently not. And this illustration here, I actually think, is more or less what's going on. The tops of the bands are sharper or fatter, I guess. I don't really know technically what's going on, but I just know what it sounds like when I mess with it. And so I mess with it, and it makes cool sounds. You also notice I'm on order 4 as opposed to order 2, which I usually do. That was just a huge mistake on my part. I put on a 4, and I was kind of like, oh, that sounds kind of cool. And then I messed with it from there. That's basically the whole reason why I'm doing that. I have no real knowledge as to what the different orders actually mean or do. So there's that. Now, I do a lot in these menus here. So this is the band gain multiplier, and this is what the first thing you're shown in the main window of Vocodex. And it's basically just the output EQ. That's what's going on there. And the next one that I want to mess with is bandwidth. I mentioned this before in the previous Vocodex video. Well, what this does is this bandwidth knob here controls the bandwidth of all of the bands. That was stupid. Those are the bands. Those are what those are. And then this controls the wideness or shortness of the bands. And the difference is other alt. This is what the difference is when you hear it. And now this bandwidth window here, what it's doing is that in individual locations, it can have different properties for the bandwidth. So like over in this section, this area has lower bandwidth, this section has higher bandwidth. So if I were to just that's what this window does. And so you can make very detailed bandwidth decisions for your sound, which I have, and it helps a lot. And now here's modulator pitch shift. I actually never messed with this before I made this track. And this is like the bandwidth window, it changes the individual pitch shift of the individual bands that's all along the spectrum. So that means that for this alteration I made here, this section of the spectrum has been pitch shifted down by this amount, and this one's been pitch shifted. Most of them have been pitch shifted down, just because I like lower sounds for bass, and some of them have gone up, but it moves around how the spectrum sounds to you, and a lot of this has just been set by ear. Like I didn't have specific decisions that I wanted to make for intelligent reasons. I just did what sounded cool. I mean, I just messed around with it until I got something that didn't sound poopy. It's more or less all that I'm doing here. Yep. There's way more options that I still haven't touched yet, but like the hold, like how long things are held for each band, like that could be a big deal. But not doing that. It's not what I'm messing with. So that's what's happening in each of these instances. This guy here, the stereo envelope, is modulating this. This is modifying the unison amount. This is modifying filter fatness of the bandwidth of the band's width, I guess. And this is just the bandwidth. And then this is the modulator sound itself. And then here's the Y and X of the carrier. That's really all there is to what's going on here. But like the craziest sound possibilities are happening as a result. Now also, I've noticed a lot of the possibilities just by messing around with the Y value of the carrier. Like I'm just going to dick around with the X and Y of the carrier while the modulator stuff stays the way it is and just listen to what happens. It's very, like, the possibilities are super and ridiculous. Like, it's kind of insane that this sound is this sound too, and this sound. Although it should be noted that I used a different sample for this. This is the Freak Me Baby sample, which is here as well.
Freak me, baby.
I think this is the baby section, like right there. But yeah. The tonal differences are ridiculous. So I think that about covers the vocoder section of what's going on here. So I'm going to talk about the FM in the main bass here. So like I talked about earlier, this was derived from the carrier that I made first. And so what's happening here is that there's two outputs, and I made a pitch difference so that there's the warble effect, and you notice how the polarity is different for all the outputs and also the FM input. And that's because if they weren't different, instead of there being a pitch warble, there'd be an amplitude warble. And I'll demonstrate what I'm talking about right now, with some FM engaged. It's actually not doing it because the high-end frequencies are different. And really what I'm saying is that if you run identical settings into two different operators and then send them out and then make a pitch difference, they will amplitude mod themselves. That's what will happen. So, but if you release the polarity, then you will still have a constant tone. And more stability. But I guess I actually had a safeguard involved here because I had two different high harmonics involved. So that's cool. But yeah, anyway, the whole reason I did the whole two output thing is because I wanted to have two different high harmonics. So this is what it sounds like with just one output. And then just the other output. And then this is just a sub. What that is the delay that I had set, the reverb that I had set to its volume set to the mod X. Because if you remember in Bass Antics and Impulse Gain, I had a reverb controlled with its own automation clip that went with the modifier X control. I thought at the time that if I just set the reverb volume to modifier X, that it would get what I wanted. However, I didn't realize that most of the time I actually wanted to have the reverb on the whole time instead of rising gradually with the modifier X. I just wanted it on, even if X was low. I just wanted it on, but then off when the note stopped. There's also ways I could have done that too, but since Citrus has internal effects, I decided I would route mod X to turn on the reverb and turn off the reverb, pretty much more or less on and off. So. And the effects get routed out even if the out's not on. Just so that's why it's happening right now. So additional modulation is happening because of the Y modifier, like I mentioned earlier. And what's happening is that in 4 and 5, the mod input is being controlled by Y, which is controlling how much operator 6 is modifying, is frequency modifying 4 and 5. So if Y, I'm just going to turn Y off in the playlist, and then if Y were all the way down, this is what it would sound like. If it were all the way up. Yep. It makes it crunchier, you know what I mean? It has a controlled crunch. So that's why you have, you know, different layers of that kind of automation going on. I could have also done interesting panning effects. Like if I were to, I'm just going to turn this back on. If I were to just do this. Instant stereo width, right? This is a little bit unbalanced because the tones aren't exactly the same. So you'd have to control it a little bit differently. But that's just a neat thing to do, I think. Yeah, I think I covered everything I need to do right here. This video was mostly about the new Vocodex sounds that were happening with the new complicated automation routing. But look at that. That's insane. That's just a lot. Yeah. So anyway, this track will be available pretty soon for, you know, it'll be available as a free download and also as a donate to get the FLP if you want to take a look at this yourself and poke around, and maybe you will learn things better than having me talk at you about them, which I am totally okay with as a thing, because I admit sometimes that I am not the greatest learning speaker. But yeah. Oh, and by the way, this is totally a guitar solo that I put in an electro track. I'm not going to play it. I'm going to have to listen to it when it comes out pretty soon, because I'm a dick. Yeah. Anyway, thanks for watching. If you have any questions, you can ask in the comments and stuff. Many people have asked me to do tutorials on Massive and FM8, and I have done a little bit on FM8, mostly on how to recreate the basics of what Citrus does, because it's just an FM concept that has nothing to do with what Citrus does versus what FM8 does. FM just does these things. So you can do a lot of what I've done in Citrus with FM8. It's just a little bit harder because it's a little bit more rigid in how you route things and how sounds are made. But it's possible. I could do more, go a little bit more in depth, especially because you can load FM8 as an effect and then FM audio input, which creates super awesome possibilities. I just haven't figured out how to control it yet. As far as Massive, I will do tutorials if you want them, but I want you to know how much I don't like Massive. It's not bad. It's not a bad synth. And what it does isn't bad either. Wavetable synthesis. It has created a lot of problems, like a lot of very meta problems in production and whatnot. But whatever, I'll talk about that if I ever do a tutorial about it. So yeah, also I'm contemplating doing a stream at some point. Later this month, I'm gonna have a replacement computer build, and when that happens, I will be able to control things a little bit better. I can do something like a stream somewhere, somehow, some way. And the way that I'm visualizing these streams is like I'm just on a stream, and then people can ask me questions about what I'm doing and why and whatever, and then we can just move forward from there. Just big live Q&A, and then having me do stuff and trying to help people out with things that they want to do based on stuff that I've already done, or maybe find out things I can't do, because there's a lot of things I can't do, or at least don't know how to do, but I will know eventually. Wahaha. So yeah, thanks for watching, and I will see you next time. And I eagerly await when this track comes out. So yeah, see you later.